Just to recap last week, I thought our coverage units were solid. They got one that got out to the 40. We could do a better job covering there. It was nice in the kickoff return phase to get Tajay, big return, one where he's up on the kicker. And I'd like to see him, break a tackle on him and, guys up front just finishing blocks. In the punt, Stoney's continuing to get better, and he hit the ball last Sunday as clean as I've seen him hit. So it's nice to see him come around. And then, as far as Nick Holz goes, we'll see where he's at this week. We did have a couple of younger guys work out this morning, and if he can't go, we'll have to rely on one of those guys. But we're hoping Nick can play this week and contribute like he has done all year.
So you worked out those kickers, deciding that Narveson wouldn't be your guy this week if you needed a replacement for him.
Yeah, correct.
What specifically were you looking for in these guys that maybe you didn't have with Braden, or just maybe go in a different direction with these workouts? What was kind of the inspiration there?
Yeah, we knew who Braden was, and he had a tremendous training camp for us. Ultimately got him a contract up in Green Bay, and just looking forward, we're just looking for a guy that's going to be consistent. Somebody come in that has experience and, be able to make kicks when they're supposed to make kicks.
How's Nick doing about telling you how he feels? And I guess you weren't surprised when we got closer to kickoff he wouldn't be able to go. Was he kind of keeping you up to date with his health through the week?
Yeah, I mean, he's a pro's pro. We signed Braden still with the mindset that Nick could go. So that was a game time decision. We went into Sunday morning knowing that Braden was on the active roster, and we had up till the 90-minute mark to make a decision, and he felt like he couldn't go, and so we were confident with Braden and him coming in and kicking, and so this probably how this week's going to go as well. We'll make that decision when we need to make that decision.
Seems like you've had some been close to blocking the punt a couple times in recent weeks. Mm-hmm. What's missing in terms of getting a finish there, and how big would it be for one of these young guys to break through?
Oh, that'd be huge. We just got to, we're just super close. Just finishing, laying out. That's a coaching point of day one is when you come to close to blocking a punt, you go out and not up to block it. But they're just barely getting a piece of us right at the point of attack, and just knocking us off guard a little bit. But one of these days we'll get one.
How have you seen Juan respond to these last couple of weeks of being down?
Good. He's been really good for us. I told you guys this day one. He's mature. He's a very mature kid, and the way he's handled this is been outstanding. And he comes in every day like it's his job still, and like he's up. And so I know he'll be ready to roll if his time comes.
It's a situation where he can earn his way back into the role, or is Mason?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
No, yeah. It's competition. That's what this league's all about. So. He'll get another shot.
How do you shape that competition up in practice? Because the obvious results are game-based.
Yeah, like today we got our punt cover phase. So him and Mason are back there catching punts, during every period. So we just evaluate every practice like it's training camp, and we make that decision at the end of the week.
I mean, Mason has a part of it, right? He did those, especially that last one there to Nick where he kind of extended the play and found him over the ball. So he's done a really nice job down there. But the other part is we've been running the ball better and we haven't gotten penalties. You watched the time when we played these guys last time, Tony ran that one in. We got the hold, set us back. So really stop shooting ourselves in the foot has really been for the whole unit has really helped.
How much is that what's changed in terms of scoring? The success in the red zone.
I mean, that's been everything for us, really getting down there. We were getting down there before and kicking all those field goals, and it was just kind of like you leave with an empty feeling when you get down there. And then going back and watching the game, these guys last time, we went up and down, not up and down the field, but get down there twice and come back with nothing. Really just goes to show how big those drives are and how important all those plays are.
Targets in the last two games for Chig, how much of that has been an intentional increase in usage for him, or has that just been the way that the games have broken?
Both, right? So intentional from the standpoint is he's done a great job really going back to right before Houston, when he got the ball in his hands, he's been electric. He's really the first guy, hasn't brought him down very often. So that's part of it. And the second part is been down multiple scores at the end of the game, and they're kind of playing some soft coverage, and the tight ends kind of get a little bit forgotten about in that, or they're really good check down. So it's a mixture of both. But he's done a really nice job, and really when he's gotten the ball in his hands, it's been positive results for us.
Get a true evaluation of how the offense has improved when you are operating against a prevent defense down 3+ scores the last couple of weeks, when you know that there's a 6-yard gain to be had if you want it.
Totally. It's not all it's not all the same, right? Apples to apples. The first quarter is different when they're playing their true defense, rather than the fourth quarter there. They were kind of just throwing a blanket on everything. So we really do kind of pull those plays out when we're evaluating the group. So kind of 2-score games. Once it's a 2-score game, look at those differently and evaluate the efficiency of the offense. The problem with that is the way we've played, the sample size gets pretty small. So it does get tougher from that standpoint. But looking at the scheme wise and things like that, we can still feel like we get a good enough evaluation.
Like that of Tajay over the last few weeks.
Tajay's been, he's the guy that really we saw in training camp, and really the guy we had saw all offseason. I think the health for him and the speed that he's playing at has been unbelievable. You see the burst, you see the change of direction in the passing game and in the running game. He's had a couple big runs where he's been able to kind of squirt through there where maybe it's blocked for 3 yards. He's been able to get 8. So when a back can do that, and really with Tony being as beat up as he's been, and we really ran him not into the ground, but he's feeling the effects of a long season. So having Tajay as kind of this last end of the season boost has been really good.
Points against Jacksonville last time around. Is this something that you have to completely rework a type of game plan, or is there just small tweaks because clearly there's things that need to change?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like we talked about earlier, touchdowns in the red zone, you get inside the 5-yard line twice and come away with nothing, that's a huge issue. But so the red zone, obviously, it takes a huge focus this week. But looking at them, we were their second game after the bye. So they played Houston. They went on the bye. They played Houston before us, and then it was us. And really, their defense since then has played pretty well, and they've really kind of not simplified, but they've done less, and they're kind of playing to their personnel a little bit. So it kind of feels like they came out of the bye with an understanding of who they want to be. And so that's kind of changed our game plan of looking at them since then, what they've done, stuff they've taken out of their defense, and taking that, trying to maximize those.
What's the process for you guys like when you play a team twice in such a short period of time? Just game planning, or are you intentional about trying to change some things up? Do you feel differently of looking at the team ahead of this game than you did just 2 weeks ago?
For sure. It's weird when you play them so quickly back-to-back together. You look at how they saw us formationally and kind of all that thing. So there's certainly that chess match of, okay, they saw us do this, we saw them do this, so are they going to change? Do they see this as a big tendency for us? So you really look at your own tendencies and what you kind of think that they had on you. They had a couple things where we thought they may have checked to a couple things, could do the formation or a couple other things like that. So situationally, but it is definitely different situationally. We have 2 really games to go on that are different. So
Back to Spears for a second. He seems so much more dynamic when he catches pass and has more space. How different is it for a guy like him on a handoff versus a reception?
I guess it's certainly different, right? You get all that space. It pretty much, some of those, especially when it's a check down, it almost turns into like a punt return, right? So it is different to have all that space and really make one guy miss, and then you're really in an explosive gain. And those guys have tough angles as they're covering somebody else trying to get back in the play. The runner then has the advantage for him. Really, when it's in the box and there's 8 guys in there, and all those guys have their gaps, they're really taking kind of frontal shots on you. Or when he's out in space on these checkdowns, guys are kind of get him from the side, and he can kind of set guys up more. So it's been pretty impressive to see him make those adjustments in space.
Jalen being back in the mix this week, what have you seen, I guess, from him in the small sample size that you've gotten, and how do you maybe think you guys incorporate him into the?
Yeah, with Tuesday really being kind of a walkthrough since we pushed the day up, he looked good and had a great look in his eye, and was very assignment sound and things like that. Today for him, Juice, Nick Petit really is our big work day. So today we'll kind of get a feel of how we're going to carry through the rest of the week. But he did a good job. He looks good. He's moving around really well, and I think that's really encouraging for us.
A good bit of talk about how eerily similar Will's and Mason's stat lines are, and whether that is a product of the players or the scheme. I'm curious if you have any insight on that. If you have players who are performing so similarly, do you think that's a product of what they're being asked to do, or them being similar, or is it pure coincidence?
I think some of those stat numbers are a little bit of a coincidence, like especially the turnovers, because really, if you look at both of their turnovers at the end, they both have, Mason had that one pick at the end of the game, which is with 2 seconds left and, just throwing it up in the middle of the field. And Will's had a couple of those on third and extra long, against the Colts the first time, had one of those. So to say that, but there is certainly similarities within the scheme, right? There's of completion percentage, some of those things. The other things we look at is kind of like, the efficiency per play, right? So I think that's where some of those things are probably a little different. And, there's some sack numbers and some other things, but the base numbers of, completions, those are very similar. So, yeah, we look into it, but I think there's other factors in there too.
Such a high percentage. Both of their interceptions have been within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
How concerning is that?
Well, it's concerning for, we've had a couple bounce off people's hands, things like that. And then really the ones on the checkdowns, they are concerning, right? You want to sit there and look at it down the field and find the open guy, and that's really kind of like short area accuracy. And so it is concerning when you're really trying to be conservative and you still have a bad outcome. Those are obviously huge issues.
What would it take? I mean, obviously you're going with Mason again this week as your starter, but with Will still a young guy in the developmental stage. What do you need to see from him in practice to say, well, maybe another shot at some point?
We're really all just kind of week to week at this point. We sat down on Monday and, all right, let's go with Mason one more week, and we're going to kind of play it by ear. Will's doing a good job in practice, and but yeah, I think that's kind of we'll sit down after the week and really go through. But they're both doing a good job, both preparing, and they're both being really supportive of each other, and which is a sign of a good quarterback room. But we're kind of just take it that way.
Yeah, we got to put the fire out. When we gave up that many yards last week against a good opponent, as this offense, they seen it. So they're going to come out and have copycat runs, and they're going to try to establish the line of scrimmage. And, we have to do a better job of getting guys down and making sure we properly fit the run.
Should there have been lessons from the Washington game where you saw some of the same gap stuff and the same bad results? I'm sure you talked about that coming into this game.
Trust me, we practiced every run that they gave us, but everybody has to be on the same page. When guys move, our second level guys got to get over the top and probably fit their gaps. We got to come downhill, and then the biggest thing is just tackling. You look at the explosive runs they had, they were all missed tackles. We had the first one where the quarterback got out. We had a guy sitting right in front of his face, and then the second one is just population to the ball, coming downhill, running the alley correctly from the back end. So it's about tackling. It's about seeing the pulls. It's about seeing the gap schemes. It's about having the discipline to do your job. And coming from that game, the discipline of each individual doing their job, the lack of discipline of each individual doing their job was the thing that hurt us.
It seems like some of the guys, when they see those gap runs, I don't know if it's the right word, but they don't respect them the same. Like when they talk about it after, they're like, well, they're gap runs.
No, it's all. To run the ball, the hardest thing to do in the run game is to play the gap scheme and fit it correctly. No, we need to put a handle on it, and we need to strangle the run game by being where we're supposed to be and seeing the plays that's coming. We were too late, especially on the second level. Seeing pullers against plays that we practice and we've seen throughout the course of the season. I mean, if you look back at the first Jacksonville game, it was a copycat runs of the same runs. So the guys got to dial in, they got to study, got to understand how they're going to try to attack us, how they're going to try to attack out front. With Jeff, they try to neutralize him with what they do up front. And, for our linebackers and the guys in the secondary, we got to fit better.
How many missed tackles you count Sunday, and how did that maybe compare to other weeks?
We probably had about 8 missed tackles. And, in the month of December, it's all about tackling. And that's one of the things we're stressing. It's one thing for a run to pop, but when you have population to the ball, you get it on the ground. And we went into the game playing more post-safety defense to load up on a run. And, you get one crease and a guy's not where he's supposed to be, bad things can happen, and we saw it. You look at the first play in the second half, we have a run pressure. We set force, and we have a linebacker go the opposite way of where he's supposed to go. And there you go. The ball goes down 70 yards. So, we got to clean it up, and everybody's held responsible for doing their job. And we got to do a better job as coaches of correcting it, put them in the right positions, and not allowing that stuff to happen anymore.
A guy like David Long being here this late, are there things he can help you with, since this is a different defense than from when he was here before, or is he mainly just depth and special teams help?
I haven't had the opportunity to really sit down and meet with him yet. Once we get the opportunity, he's in the meeting room, practice field, whatever it is, we can figure out what he can do and how he can help us. But right now, in this kind of mute point, he just came in today, and we already have first and second down game plan in, so we'll see where that goes.
Guys not recognizing quick enough for not being in the right place. Is it frustrating that that's still happening this late in the season, or can you put a finger on why it started happening now?
You also got to look at it like this. We had a lot of turnover at the linebacker position, and we had some younger guys playing, getting exposure in a huge game for the first time, and it's hard for them at times because they just don't have the experience. They haven't had the in-game reps to fight through and figure out all that stuff. So a lot of that had a lot of, why we struggled a little bit, So we got to get those guys cleaned up faster, get them recognizing, and they got to understand if you're in the National Football League, football field, and you're out there, you're accountable to all 11. So we'll get them cleaned up. Obviously it was a loss. It was a bad outing for us in the run game. But you learn from your failures, and you get better from them. And we can't go back in the past. All we can do is attack today, attack tomorrow, and attack Sunday. And that's what those guys are going to do. And they understand it. They watched the film. They made the corrections. And I expect them to come out and fix the problems.
Do you kind of feel like you've been coaching with one hand tied behind your back with just how many injuries there have been, both in the secondary and at the linebacker?
No, I mean everybody's going through injuries throughout the National Football League. When you have your better players out there, it's a little bit easier because some of those guys are race plays. That's why they out there, the starters. But the backups are held accountable as well, and they have an opportunity. And like I always say, you have to rise to the opportunity. So, it's a prove-it league, and you go out there and you either prove that you can play or you prove that you can't. But we have to get them to develop, and we got to get them to play fast and play physical and look at the right things.
A chance for Jerome to reemerge and maybe be part of the fix?
In terms of the linebacker position, it's all hands on deck right now. We're going to try to play the best combinations, play the best guys out there to go out there and give us a chance to have success, especially in the run game.
Brian Thomas Jr., 12 targets against you guys last game. 8 catches, clearly looks like one of the young rising star wide receivers in this league. What do you see out of his game that makes him
he's elusive. They move him around. He's very similar to Calvin when you watch him play. He's very skilled. He can get in and out of breaks. He's explosive. He can get over the top. And, they're doing a good job of force-feeding him the ball. He's the bell cow right now. And, he does a good job of getting open, whether it's down the field or underneath. And we got to have our attention around him and know where he's at all times.